Hello and welcome to the Damage Report. I'm Yasmin Aliya Khan and I'm filling in today for John Idarola. John has the day off, but I'm sure he's watching from somewhere. And joining me today, I have none other than Jayar Jackson. Jayar, how are you doing?
John is missing the best damn day of the week. It's pretty crazy. I can't understand why he would do such a thing. The guy knows that Monday is the launching point for the rest of the week, and also he knows that I'm here. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I'm why he's not here.
I was going to say, are you taking this a little bit personal? Because I'm very excited to be here with you. If that makes it any better.
It makes it so much better. I'm just saying, John's missing out. It's such a good day. There's lots happening. I must say.
There's arguably too much happening, and there's always, we have two big stories to cover on this show today, very, top of mind stories, but then we also have all the other stories, just the regular craziness that is always kind of going on just below the surface, just beneath all of the crazier headlines. So we have a lot to dig into on that note. So JR, if you're ready, I'm ready to go.
Listen, Yaz is a lady of action. Let's make it happen.
We're gonna make it happen. All right, so we're gonna jump right into this first story. As you all know, there's a lot of war going on or about to go on. So let's take a look at this.
Iran wants to negotiate, yes.
Negotiate what?
We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up, but we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting.
Well, in response to the mass uprising in Iran, our dementia-riddled president is now talking about how he will have to act, which we presume to means that he's about to bomb them. And according to reporting from the New York Times, unlike the strikes on their nuclear facilities, non-military options are on the table. Basically, this is what the reporting says. Mr. Trump has not made a final decision, but the officials said he was seriously considering authorizing a strike in response to the Iranian regime's efforts to suppress the demonstrations set off by widespread economic grievances. The president has been presented with a range of options, including strikes on non-military sites in Tehran, and people said speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss confidential conversations. And over the weekend, Trump posted this to Truth Social. He said, Iran is looking at freedom, perhaps like never before. The USA stands ready to help. President DJT. And it's kind of funny how nobody wanted to give this guy a Nobel Peace Prize because here he is. So in advance of whatever Trump decides to do with Iran, Iran has warned us that they are ready and willing to retaliate if they have to. They said Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, warned on Sunday that both Israel and all American military centers, bases, and ships in the region will be our legitimate targets in the event of an attack. We do not consider ourselves limited to reacting after the action and will act based on any objective signs of a threat. Preemptive strikes. It's not so much fun whenever we're on the receiving ends of those. And here is what the Iranians are actually protesting about in case you're just trying to catch up. So the protests were sparked by soaring inflation and have spread to more than 100 cities and towns across every province in Iran. Now protesters are calling for an end to the clerical rulership of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And we have some B-roll in case you've missed all the footage. You can take a look at what is actually going on in Iran, all across Iran right now. So the protests have been ongoing since December 28th. So it's been about 2 weeks as of yesterday, I believe. And since then, experts believe that the number involved in these protests have climbed to over 1 million protesters. Over the weekend, authorities shut off internet access and they have been jamming the Starlink signal. So it's very difficult for journalists and just everyday people to get any insight into what is actually going on in Iran on the ground right now. And many protesters have already been killed. So also from the New York Times, on Sunday, human rights groups began reporting a sharp rise in the death toll as accounts of a violent repression broke through a 3-day communications blackout imposed by the Iranian authorities. The Oslo-based Iran Human Rights Group raised its toll to 192, while HRANA, a rights group based in Washington, said it had confirmed the deaths of nearly 500 protesters and almost 50 security personnel. And just a note, back in 2022, there were mass protests in Iran over the death of Mahsa Amini, and 550 were killed at that time, with more than 20,000 detained over that months-long period of unrest there. JR, this is just one of the various conflicts that our president is involved in right now. And by right now, I mean like since the beginning of this year, and it's only, what's today? The 12th. Today's January 12th. So what do you make of what's going on in Iran and the US involvement in that conflict?
Well, it seems like they're increasing all these aggressions ever since the beginning of the new year. Maybe they're understanding that people here are fed up with the way they're acting, the way they're hiding, the way they're covering things up from any of the scandals. Just, choose one. Specifically, I'm gonna choose the Epstein files, but we already know that, but I just wanna keep reminding folks of that. But also number two, isn't it ironic? I'm just noticing something here. So there's an uprising in Iran from the citizens who are sick of the rising inflation, all of the suppression, the destruction of their lives, and they're taking to the streets. And Donald Trump, ironically, thinks that he's gonna talk about bombing them because he wants to support, those protesters. While in this country, there's people that are beginning to take to the streets because of suppression of people's rights. They haven't gotten there on the economy part yet, but as people take to the streets from these Gestapo members in the streets, attacking folks in their homes, in their cars, and then snatching people and kidnapping them, it's weird. It's like he doesn't see the same connection. He's acting like this oppressive government that's taking away people's rights and then killing them now in the streets for having a dissenting point of view. Isn't it odd how somehow he thinks he's gonna bomb somewhere else looking for Nobel Peace Prizes, but then say that he's on the side of freeing people from a suppressive government? Isn't that odd how he's doing the same thing here, but wants some props for trying to do it then over there and getting us involved yet? And as you pointed out, something else. So we've got Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, Cuba, that they're all now threatening. And the next up is now Iran again, for the sake of what he's doing here. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, no, and I love that you did point that out, because there's so much cognitive dissonance that the American people are constantly trying to make sense of. You're hearing one thing, you're seeing another thing, you're being told one thing one day, you're being told something completely different the next day. And it's very hard for average people who are not just like constantly keeping up with all of this stuff to keep up with all this stuff, right? It's very easy to lose yourself within these many stories. And on that note, there are so many wars, and we only have this much time to give you the entire rundown on all of them. So as what JR was alluding to, let's return now to the Western Hemisphere for our next conflict, starting with this.
You just wait for Cuba. Cuba is a communist dictatorship that's killed priests and nuns. They've preyed on their own people. Their days are numbered.
He is so excited. Lindsey Graham has never met a war he didn't love, but lately, Trump is making Lindsey Graham happier than a Trump backstage at a teen beauty pageant by giving the senator every conflict he has ever dreamed of. And as Trump weighs seizing Greenland and bombing Iran again, war hawk Lindsey Graham is continuing to inflame tensions with posts like this one to X. He says, "My advice to the commies running Cuba and oppressing its people: call Maduro and ask him what to do, if you can get through, that is. If I were you, I'd be looking for a new place to live." And then Graham included this post from Trump in his Cuba tweet. And Trump said on Truth Social, "Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. In return, Cuba provided security services for the last two Venezuelan dictators, but not anymore. Most of those Cubans are dead from last week's USA attack. And Venezuela doesn't need protection anymore from the thugs and extortionists who held them hostage for so many years. Venezuela now has the United States of America, the most powerful military in the world by far, to protect them, and protect them we will. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba, zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Because of course, and then also on social media, Trump is calling himself now the acting president of Venezuela. And you can see this is a snippet from his, I think that's from his Wikipedia page. That's what he's listed as, the acting president of Venezuela. So what does this actually have to do with Cuba? That's a good question. Trump has someone else in mind to lead the colony of Cuba, and guess who that person could be? Here's this post on Truth Social from Cliff Smith. Says Marco Rubio will be the president of Cuba, and Trump says, "Yeah, it sounds good to me." Marco Rubio is just going along with whatever role Trump decides to give him, and it's really funny. But that may sound too good to Trump, but not so much to the Cuban president, Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez, who responded to all of this on Twitter by saying, Cuba is a free, independent, and sovereign nation. No one dictates what we do. Cuba does not aggress. It is aggressed upon by the United States for 66 years, and it does not threaten. It prepares, ready to defend the homeland to the last drop of blood. All right, Jayar, there's another one. We have Venezuela, and Cuba is getting looped into that. We have, I guess, acting president of Cuba, Donald Trump, and maybe future president of Cuba who will be appointed, and that looks like it's gonna be Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is in the running for this position. What are your thoughts on this? Because this is yet another thing that the American people have to make sense of.
So at what point, since they're talking about the increased numbers of all of our sons and daughters joining the military, when Pete Hegseth's drunk ass steps into the role of the Department of War, and then starts, pushing for more war in multiple countries, isn't it exciting? And there'll be so many people that are willing to sign up to go into war. Maybe in Cuba, maybe they'll send me to Cuba to fight. Maybe they'll send me to Venezuela to fight. Maybe they'll send me over to Iran to fight. Maybe Colombia. It is so exciting to find a new place to maybe potentially die in, or maybe I can murder some more folks and have PTSD. That's great. It's such a big recruiting tool that it might even turn into a draft, to the point where you even had people like Megyn Kelly going against this stuff because she's got teenage sons and daughters, and she's a little concerned about then her lily life being turned upside down the way that lesser people's lives are supposed to be turned upside down by the promise of having a better one if you join the military and then go fight Donald Trump's wars. Just choose one. Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump, maybe even Stephen Miller. Maybe you can fight on the streets of America against Americans too. Aren't you jazzed about this idea? You can follow three of the most cowardly, sorry sumbitches you can ever follow, and to fight in wars. Maybe you can never see your family again. Also, you can remember the face of Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham's sloppy face, and also Stephen Miller's pinky in the brain ass run off to different parts of the world. That doesn't sound all that appealing to, I think, most people, but maybe all the Proud Boys and the Klans members in the streets of America, maybe they think they'll just stay on, American soil to fight his wars here. Sorry, I've been talking for an hour, Yaz, and I'm already yelling. I'm gonna.
Yeah, no. I think that energy is appropriate for everything that's going on right now in the United States and abroad, everything that we are involved in abroad. And what's interesting is historically, whenever the United States has been involved in all these various conflicts around the world, the American people were, for the most part, largely kept in the dark. I was talking to someone about September 11th recently, and this person is Gen Z. I think she's like 22 years old or something. And she was born right after September 11th, I believe, right? And I was trying to explain to her, it's like a lot of Americans just didn't know what was going on when we were attacked. We didn't know that we were so involved in the Middle East. We didn't know why someone would want to attack us. We had no idea. So we just believed everything the president said. And things are very different now because we have access to so much more information. We're able to actually see what we're doing abroad. And our president happens to have a very big mouth, and then he loves to broadcast everything. And then he wonders why people don't like it whenever he does the things that he says he's gonna do. But I do love that you mentioned Stephen Miller, because we have yet another conflict. So our president is throwing the last 80 years of defense policy into the dumpster by threatening to invade a NATO ally in a performance that brings happy tears to Putin's eyes. So here is our current warmonger-in-chief's latest comments on seizing Greenland the hard way.
We are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not. Because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
The problem with everything that he's saying there is that Russia is already very much our neighbor. At their closest points, Russia and Alaska are only 55 miles apart. And I looked it up. If you drive from the bottom of Houston to the north side of Houston, it's about that much, right? It's very, very close. And that's much closer than Greenland is to the United States. Despite that, Trump is alleging that he has to seize Greenland right now, or else Russia or China will. And he is reportedly being urged on by none other than Stephen Miller. So the Daily Mail spoke with a few sources who gave a behind the scenes accounting of the discussion. So according to the sources, the president has asked the Joint Special Operations Command, the JSOC, to prepare the invasion plan, the plan of Greenland, but it is being resisted by the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the ground that it would be illegal and would not be supported by Congress. And one source said they have tried to distract Trump by talking about less controversial measures, such as intercepting Russian ghost ships, a clandestine network of hundreds of vessels operated by Moscow to evade Western sanctions, or launching a strike on Iran. And a diplomatic source said the generals think Trump's Greenland plan is crazy and illegal, so they're trying to deflect him with other major military operations. They say it's like dealing with a 5-year-old. So that's great. We're in great hands here. We're dealing with multiple wars on multiple fronts potentially, and our president is being referred to as a 5-year-old. So while our allies have been rather silent on Trump's actions in Venezuela, which is a problem, Greenland is being controlled by Denmark, which is a NATO nation. And as such, our European partners are finally growing concerned now that it might actually impact them, everything that Trump is doing. So some European diplomats see Trump's strategy as designed to make Europe pull out of NATO, to kill the alliance, because he knows that Congress would never actually agree to pull the United States out of NATO. And meanwhile, as Trump plots its destruction, he posted this about our alliance. He said, "I'm the one who saved NATO. You guys, I saved NATO. I'm not the one destroying it. I'm the one who saved it," even though he's threatening a NATO ally actively, very actively. Not just threatening them, not just saying we need this strategically, not just saying we would like to have access to their markets or to their mines, not just saying we'd like to work with Greenland. He's saying we need Greenland to be a part of the United States, and we're gonna get it the easy way or the hard way. And the hard way is the United States taking direct military action against a NATO ally. And yeah, whenever the United States was busy not committing illegal raids on Venezuelan ships and killing fishermen and things like that, the entire time the European nations were notably very quiet about a lot of it. And then whenever the United States finally invaded and bombed Venezuela, kidnapped the president, took the president of Venezuela to New York City, again, Europe was very quiet about it. And then immediately after, within days, Trump turned his attention to Greenland, and now they're like, oh, maybe this is a problem. What are your thoughts, Jayar?
This is crazy. Listen, if there's sources that have to talk about how they're treating the president of the United States like a 5-year-old, a petulant 5-year-old that sees a country on the map and says, I want to attack it, I don't like them. And then they have to try and distract him with another target, not distract him with normalcy or like diplomacy or even like, taking care of the situations and issues that we've got in this country. Instead, they have to distract him by saying, no, how about you attack somewhere else, Donnie? Donnie, I think the people there, those folks, they matter a little bit less. Maybe if we attack them, it'll satisfy your bloodthirst, and then we can move on to the next. Maybe you don't have to talk about Greenland so much and then get some pushback from folks who are thinking clearly about it. They're doing anything and everything that they think he wants. They can, you know what? Maybe this is the convincing factor. You guys can clear your schedules for changing Donnie's diapers and putting his pacifier in only if you go ahead and get rid of his ass. Be a part of a movement to get rid of him, maybe just for yourself, not for the radical leftist libs and Antifas that are in the streets, but maybe about your ability to clear your mind. I'm positive Marco Rubio would like to clear his schedule from having to follow behind Donald Trump, listening to him ramble on and on and on again about how he wants to attack another country and how he gets this authority to do anything he wants morality-wise internationally. Free themselves from this guy and then go back to your horrific policies that the rest of us folks that are speaking for the United States of America and our actual prosperity can push back on you on. We got enough crazy folks from MAGA, but they're following the craziest here and are pointing out how much of a child he is. Isn't that the same thing that all the people with Trump derangement syndrome were talking about, before this guy walked his ass back into the White House? Like they were right or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to call a man, akin to a 5-year-old, but it's like, but you're the one who's not just like obeying his orders and commands, but you're enabling him. You're the one who's still actively supporting it. So all of these naysayers who come out of the Trump administration that are like, oh yeah, like he's not even that smart, he's not even that great. It's like, but then why are you still behind him? Why haven't you taken steps to get rid of him? Whatever those steps could look at, why are you still enabling all of this? And whenever you look at, anytime there's a dictator or an authoritarian or just a leader who is ill-equipped to be in that leadership position, it's not so much the leader themselves. They don't have any power unto themselves. They have power from all their supporters. All the power that they wield is within pockets of people all across the country. And Trump has that. And I don't know why. I don't know why people are still supporting him. We know why, we have reasons why, but it's just so nonsensical, especially whenever you're watching these things and whenever people inside the administration are saying he is childlike, he doesn't know what he wants, we distract him as if he is a child. That should be embarrassing for you if you're still supporting somebody like that.
There was one more thing, you guys, sorry. I know we're going out for a second. I listened this morning to CNN, and John Fetterman, Democratic senator from Pennsylvania, was asked about this whole thing with Greenland and him attacking more countries. And he said, oh, I'm in favor of us having some access to Greenland, but we're not gonna attack. And they played him audio, I'm assuming it's video because I was listening, but video of Donald Trump saying those same things that you just ran about easy way or hard way, and we're gonna have to do it no matter what. And then came back to him, and his ass, for some reason, I'm not sure where he collected this thought from, said, that's nonsense, there's no way we'd ever do such a thing. Not based off of what he said. Now, the response is supposed to be based off of what Donald Trump said. Maybe someone else, and it's an adult, is gonna stop him from doing that and maybe send him to bomb somewhere else. But some reason, listening and watching clear evidence right in front of his face didn't convince John Fetterman that the guy that he's supporting in these kind of international endeavors just said, I will do it the hard way. That's how these things get facilitated. Because even the people who say that they're against what Donald Trump said he's gonna do will say, he's not really gonna do it. Then when he does it, they'll be like, oh, I guess we're doing it. We're at the point where we need to stop it before it gets to where they're just accepting it.
No, I mean, they do seem to just accept it. And like I said on another show, whenever he invaded Venezuela, these America First people who supported Trump on that America First platform, I think it was like 65% of Republicans supported the decision. I'm like, I wonder if these people even know what they're supporting and what it is that they think is happening in Venezuela. But at this point, it doesn't matter because he has solidified his base to the point where whatever he does, they will support him. So, and that's why we call them a cult, because that is cult-like behavior. So we're gonna take our first break, but we will be right back with more. Hey everybody, welcome to the break. We're gonna take a look at some of your comments and see what's going on out there. Also, hi John, if you're watching. I feel like he's watching. Let's see, from tyt.com from the member comments, Jammer57 says, why is it Ayatollah Trump can shoot American protesters? Shouldn't we fix that before we worry about Iran? Yeah, I mean, that's the whole premise. That was the whole idea behind the America First platform. That was the whole idea behind MAGA, behind Make America Great Again, right? They wanted to keep the money here in the United States. They wanted to keep all the resources here, focus the attention here. But in the meantime, what we're seeing is all of our money is being sent elsewhere. And it's not just like if we invade or attack or bomb a country, it's not like it's a one-time thing. It's not like we just pay once. These are long-term, potentially years or even decades-long conflicts that he is getting us involved in. And it's gonna be very, very difficult for us to get ourselves out of these situations, even once Trump is finally out of office. So it's very upsetting, it's very frustrating, but all of this is done to kind of uphold the military-industrial complex. So many different corporations and government groups are making money off of war, especially wars that involve oil, for example. So, and then in Greenland, of course, the tech CEOs, they all need all those minerals that are hiding under Greenland, and we have to mine it. It's really disappointing, and the American taxpayers who are not really going to directly profit off of any of these endeavors are the ones who are going to be footing the bill for it. So yeah, not very America First. Dragon says, JR rocking the Rams gear, go Rams. Ooh, yeah, there was some conflict earlier before the show started because our producer Mike is based in Buffalo, and
Well, your Texans, I think, played tonight. I mean, I almost forgot about the last.
I guess that's good to know.
I figured. Man, John and I talk about so much sports every time that I'm on here on Mondays. It's like WWE and everything.
Now we're talking was still football. A thing. That's funny. Now, I did hear that the Texans were a contender this year for the Super Bowl, which I was like, oh, okay, that's good, because I don't know. I just remember like years ago, the Texans were not really a whole lot to be excited about. And then one year they got very good, but I guess now we're almost Super Bowl level good. So
well, I mean, calm down, pump the brakes on the Super Bowl talk. I mean, playoffs. Let's start with playoffs.
I just know, like, what is it? We have like another month of this, right? Of football season. But
yeah, like you're ready for this to be over.
I'm kind of ready for this to be over. I'm ready for the halftime show. I watched the halftime show and that's about it. So I am ready for this year. And then they also said Yaz is here as well. Best damn day of the week. I love a Yaz and Jayar show, and we don't get to do it very often.
I agree. Every time it's lovely.
Yeah, it's a good time. So let's see what else we got. YouTube members, we have Chase Lindley, 7030, member for 53 months. That's a long time. What do you call it when beyond parity reaches the third exponent? It's like the multi-Spider-Man meme of mental gymnastics. Yeah, that is what this feels like. And that's why, I mean, that is the strategy, right? Is to confuse and debilitate people and their ability to actually make sense of the world around them. They want it to feel nonsensical. They want it to feel overwhelming. And they want you to not know what's real and what isn't. And they want you to not know even how you feel about it, right? There's so much noise out there. And that's why I always tell people sometimes, pick a show you like, get your information, get some context, and then take a step back and think about it for yourself. Do some research, really get an idea of how you feel about things. Be right back. Welcome back to the Damage Report. I'm Yasmin Khan. I'm in for John Idarola today. We have plenty more stories to get to, so we're gonna get right into this next one.
The shooting, we should note, was Wednesday at 10:37 a.m. Eastern. Just over 2 hours later, the Department of Homeland Security put out a statement definitively asserting what had happened, defending the ICE agent, accusing Renee Good of domestic terrorism. That's a characterization that you reiterated in a press conference half an hour later. Now, Republican Senator Tom Tillis said, quote, "It was very unusual to have a senior law enforcement official to draw a conclusion about an event where the scene was still being processed. Generally speaking, law enforcement would recognize that a life was lost, that families are changed forever, the shooter's life will change forever. We're collecting video, we're trying to assess the situation." Why did you not wait for an investigation before making your comments?
Oh, well, everything that I've said has been proven to be factual and the truth.
Not true. Kristi Noem had an interview with Jake Tapper and it did not go very well for her. And as you just saw there, she was asked why she rushed to a conclusion when the investigation hadn't even started yet. And she was pressed on the fact that one of the first things she said was such a lie that even Fox News didn't agree with it. And that was when she said that the agents were getting their car out of snow when they were attacked. Take a look.
With all due respect, Secretary, the first thing you said was, quote, "What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and rammed them with her vehicle." That's not what happened. We all saw what happened.
It absolutely is what happened. Those officers had been out in enforcement action. A vehicle had been stuck. They had come to help get that vehicle out. That's when this individual started blocking traffic for minutes and minutes.
You said that the woman attacked them and surrounded them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle.
Blocked the road for a long time and was yelling at them.
So now one comparison that people are making is to January 6th, where the officers were, of course, assaulted by Trump supporters and Ashley Babbitt was killed that day. However, unlike what happened with Renee Good, Ashley Babbitt was seen to be a hero on the right. And no one was pressed about that also on CNN, and she struggled to give a decent response.
Those are law enforcement officers being physically attacked. By this standard, would any of those officers be justified in shooting and killing the people causing them physical harm?
Every single situation is going to rely on the situation those officers are on. But they know that when people are putting hands on them, when they are using weapons against them, when they are physically harming them, that they have the authority to arrest those individuals.
The president pardoned every single one of those people. I just showed you video of people attacking law enforcement officers. Undisputed proof, undisputed evidence. And I just said President Trump pardoned all of them. And you said that President Trump is enforcing all the laws equally. It's just not true. There's a different standard for law enforcement officials being attacked if they're being attacked by Trump supporters. We just saw that.
This individual in these instances and these investigations all have to be taken and done correctly in context of every situation that is happening on the ground.
Yeah, she's struggling to answer Jake Tapper's questions because her responses and the administration's responses overall to what has been happening with ICE, specifically in Minneapolis, specifically with Renee Good, it is nonsensical. So whenever they're confronted with things that contradict their very specific talking points, they're unable to deviate from those talking points because any deviation exposes that it's just not true what they're trying to say. And Kristi Noem, for better or for worse, has become the face of the tragedy in Minneapolis. And White House insiders are actually not happy with how she's been handling all of it. They spoke to Politico and they expressed their frustration with how she immediately slammed the victim. So do you think it's domestic terrorism? Yeah, I do. A person close to the White House told Politico, but it might not have been wise to say that at the outset. Now, how Noem said it. I don't know how we recover from this, said one official, adding, this is highly problematic and not a good look and not something our government should be remotely engaged in. So it's not a good look. They're worried about the optics of it. They're not really so mad about like the actual lie that is coming out of the White House and this administration. But Kristi Noem, she's also doubling down on sending ICE to Minneapolis. Here's a headline from NBC. It says hundreds more federal agents are headed to Minnesota. Kristi Noem says we're going to continue if they conduct violent activities against law enforcement, she said on Sunday. And of course, the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, and also the mayor of Minneapolis, they have both come out and said in no uncertain terms, we do not want ICE here. We're not happy that they're here. Why are you sending more agents here? Please stop. But before we move on, let's show you just how emboldened these agents are now that they know that the Trump administration will defend them. You would think that all this additional scrutiny would, have them rein in some of their worst impulses, but on the contrary, they now can do whatever they want because they have shot a woman in cold blood and nothing bad happened to them, right? So here's ICE agents confronting a man who's just trying to get through.
This is your warning.
For what?
Stop following us. You are impeding operations. This is the United States federal government.
Over here. I got to get to my house.
This is your warning.
Got to get to my house.
Go home to your kids.
Go to church.
Go to your kids. This is your last warning.
I serve the Lord.
I will arrest you.
I'm not making any bad decision. I'm peaceful. I serve the Lord.
Been warned, all right?
Not a draft dodging coward.
Have a great day, sir.
You too.
I guarantee you're not going to like the outcome. Go home to your children. It's Sunday.
Yeah, go exactly. Let people go to church.
You did not learn from what just happened? Go home to
Learn
your kids.
What?
All right, Jayar, he said, did you not learn from what just happened? And that's been taken to be referring to the shooting of Renee Good, the murder of Renee Good. Did you not learn that we can now just shoot you and nothing bad will happen to us? And so I guess we're just gonna continue shooting the American people and nothing bad will happen to them. Jayar, is there another way to interpret that is less crazy?
Yeah, you see how normalizing violence works? It's been ramped up each stage of it. And it was all jokes. When Donald Trump was talking about this on the campaign trail, it was joking. When he was spotting his racism and bigotry and xenophobia on the campaign trail, it was just joking. It was just trolling the left. And if you respond to it angrily or say, this is what this guy's gonna do, you got Trump derangement syndrome. That is until the jokes turned into reality. Then once it turned into reality, there was an excuse for then why you're taking people off the streets without warrants, without any kind of arrest, with masked individuals we don't even know who they are. People that were also were impersonating also these criminals and then taking people off the streets, putting them in concentration camps where they get tortured and killed and kept from any kind of medical care, clean water or food or places to sleep. All that, it's weird how it was said it was gonna happen and they said it's crazy for you to say so. Then when it happened, it's normalized. So we've ramped up now to the point where these same military style police in the streets who are Proud Boys and Klans members are now normalized to be telling people, didn't you just learn we murdered someone? That means the new standard is we murder people if you get in our way, either purposely or not. We murder people. Now we're supposed to take that, which previously someone would have said, hey, they're gonna start murdering us in the streets. And before you'd have Trump derangement syndrome from saying it. Now what it's called is standard normalization of these tactics. Suddenly bloodthirst is normal now in the United States of America because we allowed them to get this far and we allowed other folks who were apologizing for them and saying, well, maybe they're not so bad. Maybe now we've gotten to the point where they're saying we are that bad and you've accepted us. What's your problem with it? You didn't stop us before. Why would we stop now? A couple other things. Kristi Noem's dumbass went on this show. And what do you think is the purpose of her going on shows like this? When it's obvious it was a train wreck, it was an absolute disaster. Even Jake Tapper, who was reading for some reason the points to push back on these extreme lies that she's telling, that she still crashed and burned that entire time. Walked away, probably held her chest up high and walked off like she did something. Because the purpose here is to push propaganda. The difference now when propaganda that was pushed in 1939 up to 1947 and years on beyond that is, it wasn't 2026 where we have literal video evidence of everything. Everyone's got a documentation type of tool in their hands and we're seeing it right in front of us. They released the body cam evidence of them shooting Renee Good from the direct point of the guy who did it. And they thought that exonerated them. We're looking at reality. So they're fighting not only with just propaganda and people knowing how disastrous they are, but also fighting with what we're seeing with our own eyes. They're fighting back on that with someone like Kristi Noem, who's talking like a robot with like a crane type of bad guy sitting on top of her head to tell her everything she's supposed to say to back up Donald Trump and all of his lies. But we're supposed to not look at the reality in our faces and instead listen to someone like Kristi Noem. What is it about her that makes you want to listen to her? We've seen her lie about everything else. We saw her directly lie to Jake Tapper's face again about what is that we all saw. So next time, Kristi Noem goes in front of a podium, steps in front of a camera, gets in front of a cable news anchor and lies some more, stop listening to them. Don't argue with your friends and family that say Kristi Noem said it this way, because Kristi Noem is a liar. She works for Donald Trump, who's also a liar. And they've been lying ever since they got into any kind of public view. So I have a really, really good prediction here. You can take this to the bank. Next time they speak, you can start with the assumption that they're lying. That's why you identify liars, because then when the next time you see them, you start by not believing them, because what they're doing is lying. That's like their job. So stop listening to Kristi Noem. I wish Jake Tapper would not have her on anymore. I wish the Sunday shows wouldn't have her on anymore. Let her go to Fox News and Newsmax and do all the lying that they're supposed to do, because they're the ones who are the state-run media to do that stuff. Stop listening to them. Let's act, because after they're lying and we're fighting over whether or not what our eyes saw, they're doing other things like attacking people in the streets and murdering more of them. Like this, we need to stop with the talking and start with the acting.
Yeah, and I think that we've been saying some degree of that for a long time, really since Donald Trump came onto the scene and was so blatant in his lies. Like immediately, just from the moment he was inaugurated, even during his first term, and we had all that upset over how many people were there at the inauguration. We were like, we can see it for ourselves. And so since then, and even before, while he was on the campaign trail, and back in 2015, it was like, why does anyone believe anything he says? And then whenever they're quoted, people like Trump, but also people like Kristi Noem, whenever they're quoted as authorities, it's like, but we already know that we can't trust them. We already know that they lie to us. So why is that even a thing? And it sucks for people like Jake Tapper and for networks like CNN that they can't go directly to these secretaries and use them as sources, because that's what they're trained to do, is to go directly to the source, right? So they have the source there, but the source is not good enough because the source is just a mouthpiece and is not really valuable in terms of these bigger conversations that we're having. But let's move on. There have been protests across the country. So thousands rallied over the weekend for anti-ICE protests after the shooting of Renee Good. And Sean Hannity on Fox News, he was really, really desperate to get a soundbite of some unhinged protesters, and he actually was unable to do so. Take a look.
Can you speak to anybody that's marching right now and ask them what it is that they're marching about?
Yeah. Excuse me. Can you tell us, what are you here marching for?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my ears are ringing a lot, so I don't know if I'll hear perfectly. But yeah, I'm just here because I think it's absolutely disgusting what ICE is doing here. I think it's absolutely abhorrent that they're kidnapping people. I'm disgusted that they murdered an innocent human being. And yeah, the entire thing just absolutely abhors me. This has to stop immediately. What we're seeing right now is frankly an ethnic cleansing. It's disgusting.
Hey, Garrett.
And it needs to stop. And I'm glad that there's so many people out here trying to stop this because it's just abhorrent. And we need to stick together to stop this.
Does he have a concern that the woman was driving her car at an officer? Does it concern this individual?
When you saw this video that is out, did you have any concern that it looked like this woman may have been driving her vehicle at the officer?
That's not what it looked like to me at all. And I mean, like, even if you did assume that was the case, which it absolutely is not, we are supposed to train officers to be responsible in these situations and judge the situation objectively, look at it reasonably.
Yeah, and this person was very well spoken, very clear in what he was trying to communicate. And it doesn't fit the right-wing narrative, especially the narrative that you get from Fox News, that all of these people on the left are agitators, we're not smart people, we're all deranged, and we don't have a clear vision of the world and what it's supposed to be, because our view of the world is directly in contradiction to what Trump wants our view of the world to be. So meanwhile, as the investigation of the shooting is now starting, federal agents are cutting out local officials from being a part of it at all. So Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison says that federal agents were not going to share their investigative file with them. So he said, we started hearing they're not going to release it. They're going to exclude state authorities from the bullets, the gun, the crime scene. Ellison tried to intervene. Can we call somebody? Can we work it out? Can we come to some understanding? He recalled thinking in an interview with HuffPost, when the news went public, his hopes dropped. He sent a letter to federal officials pleading with them to change their minds, and he hasn't heard back. And the Trump administration gave this reason for cutting them out. And he said local investigators simply could not be trusted to conduct a fair inquiry. A senior federal law enforcement official speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations said that the remarks of Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey blaming the shooting on immigration operations the White House had ordered in his city prompted the move. The administration likened Mr. Frey's finger pointing to ordaining a predetermined outcome, even though his statements were comparable in tone to, if opposite in substance, from the Trump administration's torrent of talk. And there is some good news, and that is that there has been a GoFundMe page for Renee Good's family. It was open and it had to close after reaching $1.5 million, and that is encouraging. It's the least that can and will happen at this point, especially since the investigation seems as though it's not going to yield any kind of real results. But I did see a similar GoFundMe set up for Jonathan Ross, who is the man who killed, the ICE agent who killed Renee Good, and then had derogatory things to say about her after he shot her. And it wasn't nearly as much money. So maybe that's a little bit encouraging. Jared, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the folks that are probably trying to support the murderer, maybe their paychecks aren't quite so large, since this guy's been destroying their lives as well. It's not like their lives have gotten better either. They're thriving off of their racism and the hatred. That's really what they're based off of. But really fast, I won't talk long. First off, this is supposed to be the most transparent administration in history, but they're cutting off any investigations towards what it is that we're looking to find here. And they're critical of the way that the mayor there, Fry, was talking about it, completely ignoring the fact that, again, we saw Kristi Noem go on TV and double down on what we all saw and the lies that she told immediately after, was having no idea of what is that actually happened. They can jump to conclusions, which after we look into another 5 seconds of it, are obviously wrong, but then someone else pointing out exactly what is that happened, along with local folks that have seen it, local law enforcement that talked about what we saw, all of that happening is somehow flying in the face of reality. So you would think if you're on the right side of this discussion that you could release everything that you're investigating and everyone will be convinced, because they have released little things like, again, that body cam evidence, and everyone saw the opposite of what it is that you said it was. That might be the reasons why you're gonna keep all the rest of these investigations in-house and away from the local officials who are maybe too hell-bent on reality, because that's what they're pushing, is this alternate version of it.
Yeah, and they can only do that. Well, I don't know. Like I say that they can only do that for so long, but they have been doing it for so long. And it's kind of unbelievable that they still have so many people who are just willing to accept all of these things that are directly contradictory to the other things that they also accept. Like, I don't know how people don't just question the things that already exist in their own heads, things that they themselves have already accepted as truth. And then something else comes in that is directly contradictory to that. And they say, no problem, I can just find space for all of it in my head and they will not touch. We'll just keep them completely separate. I don't know how that works, but it's been working for over 10 years now. And all these things this is nothing new. Seeing video, we all saw the video of George Floyd, nothing has changed. There's so many instances of police brutality, or in this case, ICE brutality, that we have seen for ourselves. The administration says that's not what you saw. And then they have their own supporters out there saying, yeah, that's not what we saw. I didn't see that. So that's what we're up against. We're gonna take another break. We'll be right back with more. Hey everybody, welcome to the social break. Where are your comments? Okay, we're gonna look at some comments and see what you guys have to say. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to say. Political purposes, for leverage, and it feels like the American people never actually get what we want. And we're in a sad state of affairs these days when we can't really count on the Democrats who are in government to fight for the American people and for the things that we want from our government. So, it's all kind of just like an ineffectual Congress that we have right now. Banana Drew says, is ICE even going after illegal immigrants in Minnesota anymore? It's hard to say, because at this point they are power hungry, they're drunk with with their weaponry and with their immunity. And our vice president wants to give them unlimited immunity. They said they can do whatever they want, including shooting a woman in the head who has not done anything wrong, and she was smiling at the agents when she drove off. X-Dog, the security dragon, says he regretted asking this guy any questions. He was hoping to get someone that would say, unalive the ICE. Yeah, because that would fit the narrative. They want to portray anybody on the left, anyone who is opposed to this administration, as not just being unintelligent or unhinged or whatever, but just as being not a good person, and that's not what's happening. They want to portray these protesters as dangerous individuals, but that was a very well-spoken person, very eloquent person that they chose to interview on Fox News, and it didn't work. And Sean Hannity, even from the studio, tried to continue to bait this person into saying something really crazy, and the guy was like, no, that's not what I saw in that video. That's not what it looked like to me, and even if it was, that still doesn't give anyone the right to shoot someone in the head in cold blood and then walk off saying derogatory things about that person. Lori Ann said, my first instinct would have been to jump out of the way. If she were actually going to hit him, shooting her would not have stopped the vehicle in time. Yeah, I think that would have been a normal first instinct for most people, but it's always been a problem. My problem with law enforcement in general, and this is very much so expanded to ICE because they're so heavily funded. The minute that you give these unqualified, hateful people weaponry and qualified immunity or just outright immunity, you're gonna have problems like this. These people are not the people who are going to stick to their principles and not let that kind of power go to their heads. They took those jobs in the first place because they wanted that power in the first place. That was always the goal. That's why people become members of a gang like ICE. All right, over on YouTube and our super chats, Shiny984 says, nothing says I'm Christian like going to war with everyone and stealing their resources. I think that's in reference to Donald Trump, who does like to pretend that he's a Christian while also invading countries and, being so imperialistic, more imperialistic than we have seen an American president in decades. And yeah, Stabbity Stab Dragon gave us $2. Thank you very much. And says, why is Tapper giving that trash Kristi Noem any respect at all? Yeah, he did say with all due respect, and then he proceeded, like how maybe he was implying that there's not a whole lot of respect to, maybe that was the part we were supposed to infer. And then Endured X said, we'd be lucky if ICE has 3 months of training. Look like many are trying to do the minimal, which is supposedly like 1.5 months. These people just see easy money and they're going for it. They don't care. All right, welcome back to the Damage Report. I'm Yasmin Aliya Khan in for John Iadarola today. I'm joined with my co-host, Jayar Jackson, because he's here every Monday, and that's a lot of fun for everyone. We have a lot more stories to get to, but before we go on, I do want to tell you about our sponsor, Noble Mobile. Noble Mobile is the only wireless plan that pays you to use your phone less. Switch to Noble's No Bull plan and get unlimited access for only $50 a month. For any data you don't use, you get cash back that you can spend however you want. Stop letting your unused data go into the pockets of billionaires and shareholders. Switch to Noble and take control of your data and save money at the same time. People who switch to Noble save an average of $500 to $1,000 a year on their phone bill. Switch to Noble today by visiting go.tyt.com/switch. It supports TYT in our mission of delivering true independent media. Again, that's go.tyt.com/switch. All right, and we have some more stories for you. We're gonna talk about the DHS. So we have another example of why the American people are protesting ICE. A Costa Rican man was deported from the United States in a vegetative state, and he died shortly after arriving back home in Costa Rica. So Randall Gamboa Esquivel had left Costa Rica in good health and crossed the United States-Mexico border in December 2024, according to his family. However, Gamboa was detained by the US authorities for re-entering American soil unlawfully, as he had previously lived there undocumented between 2002 and 2013. Gamboa was initially held at the Webb County Detention Center in Laredo and then transferred to the Port Isabel Detention Center in Los Fresnos, both in South Texas. Nearly 10 months later, in September 2025, the Trump administration flew the 52-year-old to the Costa Rican capital of San Jose on an air ambulance. So he never came around, and 5 weeks later, Gamboa was pronounced dead at a hospital. And his younger sister, Grieta Mata, she said she's still trying to make sense of how this all happened, how his health deteriorated so badly while he was in custody. Here's what she had to say. She said, my brother disappeared and we had to reach out to agencies, lawyers, consulates, anyone willing to help. How is it possible that a man that left healthy, tall, chubby, robust, came back dirty, looking abandoned, with ulcers on his body in a vegetative state? And Tricia McLaughlin, the assistant secretary at DHS, gave a non-answer as to how all of this could have happened to this person. She said, while in custody, medical professionals diagnosed him with unspecified psychosis and hospitalized him at Valley Baptist Hospital so he could get proper mental health and medical care. McLaughlin added that medical care for those in the custody of ICE includes dental and mental health intake screening within 12 hours of arriving at each detention facility, a full health assessment within 14 days of entering ICE custody or arrival at a facility, and access to medical appointments and 24-hour emergency care. This is the best health care that many aliens have received in their entire lives. But by July 7th, Gamboa had been diagnosed with at least 10 different conditions. Sepsis, which is a life-threatening reaction to an infection, that is listed as his primary diagnosis. But he also had rhabdomyolysis, a condition in which damaged muscle tissue breaks down very rapidly. Other conditions outlined in the report include protein malnutrition and also toxic encephalopathy caused by an infection or prolonged exposure to drugs, radiation, or metals that can likely alter your brain and affect your brain function. So here's what Gamboa's sister had to say about all of that. I can't sleep thinking what would have happened if we knew he was sick. Why did they keep this information from us? We found out where he was in August. The information didn't come from the Costa Rican consulate nor ICE. It came from a lawyer whom we asked for help and who called us saying, I found him in a bed. He follows you with his eyes but can't talk. He is in a vegetative state. Yeah, JR, this is a terrible story, but we have to assume that if this is a story that we're hearing about, that there are other similar stories that we're not hearing about, because we see how many people ICE is taking and detaining, and we don't have any kind of oversight into what is going on in these ICE detention centers or what's happening once these people are deported, and their families have no idea. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. This is what we've seen reports of. I think I saw another report that said nearly 100 folks have died in ICE custody just from last year. So yeah, that increases. That's what they've reported. And how much do you think we would have heard about this if it wasn't brought forward by other folks talking about it? As the guy who even found him, this wasn't reported by them. They don't care. There was also, I think the ACLU pointed out that they say they're not responsible. These detention centers, the DHS says they're not responsible for the abuses that happen to people while they're in detention centers that are under their name. It's a complete hand washing of this entire situation because they don't care. There's a dehumanization factor. They don't care what happens to folks, and when it happens to folks, they say, I guess they shouldn't have existed, or that we're murderers. This whole shootings in the streets, as being Renee Good being the second one that we've seen in the streets, that's not the first murders that they've committed here. There's a reason why they whisked Jonathan Ross away from his house, had masked agents go take out all of his belongings and move him out and put him in like criminal custody to keep him from like accountability for his actions. It's because they're killing people and they're okay with killing people. As a matter of fact, that's like the fun part for them. That's why they recruited murderers to do this stuff. And they're just showing it right in front of us. They probably like enjoyed watching this guy deteriorate for whatever kind of conditions that they put on him. We saw with Alligator Alcatraz, the conditions sucked. The conditions were harming people, and they thought that that was like a feature in their fun presentation of harboring people in these facilities to slowly kill them. Like, well, you came along with us peacefully, so we get to slowly kill you rather than shoot you in the streets and maybe throw our knees in your neck. This is how they operate. So again, we keep having discussions while they're having, murders. It's weird. It's weird. They want us to shut up. And that's the main thing. They want us to turn off the cameras, but they're killing people. Like, I don't know how we can't like fully acknowledge that. They're killing people, and they're gonna keep killing people, and they're gonna find new ways to kill more people. That's how they operate. They're murderers.
Yeah, and the fact that all of this is being caught on camera is a function. It's not like a malfunction of what they're trying to do. They want to be caught on camera. They want the American people to see what it is that they're doing, not just what they're doing, but what they're capable of and what they're capable of doing without feeling any kind of remorse for what they're doing. We all heard what Jonathan Ross said immediately after he shot Renee Good in the head, however many times he shot her. So they want you to know that these are the type of people that we're up against. They also want you to see that this is what they're capable of doing, and they're gonna be able to do it without any kind of oversight. They're gonna be protected. They're gonna get money from their GoFundMe campaigns. They're gonna be defended by everyone from the vice president to the president of the United States to the secretary of Homeland Security. All of those people will stand up for these people because that is the job that they were given to do, right? That is why they were paid so much money. That's why they have better benefits than most Americans have in this country. That's why They get paid as much as they do, and they have all the weaponry, and they have one of the biggest budgets comparable to other militaries around the world. That is why, because they want us to be scared, and they want us to also know that there's not a whole lot you can do about it, because we're just going to continue to do it. And so it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Kristi Noem, and it's like, why does anyone listen to anything that she has to say? I don't know why anyone listens to what she has to say, because we know who she's working for, we know what agenda she's trying to push, and we know that this administration will not deviate from that agenda. No person in this administration has enough of a backbone to actually speak up for what they actually think or feel. So none of them actually matter. They're all just mouthpieces. They're all just various mouthpieces that have been distributed across various parts of government. So they all have like this weird, dumb hive mind. And so they're all completely moot, like nothing they say really matters or should matter at this point. So JR, we have to take our break. That is the end of the first hour. So we hope to see you all in the aftermath in a little bit. Hey everybody, welcome to the aftermath of the damage report. I'm Yasmin Aliya Khan filling in for John today. Before we have a few stories that we're gonna try and squeeze into this aftermath, but before we get to that, don't forget about our sponsor, Noble Mobile. You can save money by using your phone less and you get unlimited data for $50 a month, and it's go.tyt.com/switch. That's hard to say, I can never say it. But anyway, we're gonna go on to our next story. Let's do it.
Do you believe that the FBI should be sharing evidence with state officials in Minnesota?
Well, normally I would, but they're crooked officials. I mean, Minneapolis and Minnesota, what a beautiful place, but it's being destroyed. It's got an incompetent governor, fool. I mean, he's a stupid person.
All right, well, Trump would have you believe that they have mountains of evidence of this so-called Somali daycare fraud, but when it comes time to show you the proof, suddenly, it's crickets. So making baseless claims works well for Trump in the court of public opinion, but not so much in the court of actual law, because here's this, a judge is blocking the Trump administration from freezing $10 billion in childcare funds to 5 states. A judge temporarily blocked efforts by HHS to recover billions in funds for childcare and family assistance, mostly for lower income Americans. So this is just a temporary order, but there is some reason to believe that it could stand considering the weak case that Trump's team have brought. So the Department of Health and Human Services has said that it had serious concerns about widespread fraud and misuse of taxpayer dollars in state administered programs, and alleged that those states may be wrongfully providing services to immigrants who are in the country illegally. It did not provide evidence of fraud. Funny how that works. The state's attorney general have disputed the department's assertions, saying that the Administration for Children and Families, which is within HHS, has presented no proof of fraud. Democratic leaders in those states have denounced the suspension of funds and described the move as cruel and politically motivated. With how often he attacks the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, over these exact claims, Trump is making the Democratic AG's case for them. And as previously mentioned, this is a temporary hold. Here's what happens next. The order seeks to protect the status quo while plaintiffs' motion for a preliminary injunction is briefed and decided, wrote Judge Subramanian, a Biden appointee. The order shall automatically expire in 14 days, subject to any further order from the court. So, will they have any evidence come their next court appearance? That remains to be seen. It seems unlikely because I feel like if they had the evidence, we would have seen some evidence by now, maybe not all, but like some. But judging by Trump's unwillingness to share anything, I think it's a safer bet that he has nothing, right? And how many times have we heard that from this administration, that they have evidence of something bad happening? And I will show you the evidence, just give me a minute and I'll have it. And then they move on. Instead, they decide to bomb Venezuela instead. And then people are like, oh, we forgot all about that. That's the way that this administration works. We should know that by now. But then also, what's interesting about this story to me, Jayar, specifically about these Somalians the Somali people who are here in this country illegally, and they're taking all this money out of daycare, whatever. This is something that Tim Walz has dropped out of his reelection bid for governor over. And also the people on the right, they are threatening to not pay their taxes anymore over this, right? There's a lot of reasons to be mad at this country and with the way that our government and administration is spending our tax dollars. But this is the thing that they're like, what is the point of even paying taxes anymore? It's really bizarre.
Isn't it weird? It's weird how they have these stances based off of nonsense, but then when other folks have maybe those similar stances based off of reality, proven factually based reality that, you're being un-American. And good riddance, Tim Walz, fine, leave. Since you don't want anything to do with the fight, since you want nothing to do with reality, since you want nothing to do with the people that elected you, please leave. Get out of here then. Be the weakling. Go stay in the corner and whine and cry and agree with and make sure that you're trying to follow from this same mindset that the people who hate you, who hate this country are perpetuating. Be that guy. Be like forgotten in history. So again, he points out how these are Trump. He said these are corrupt people. Normally, I would believe them. Normally, I'd like to share this information with them. But now, since we know they're corrupt, let's not do it. That's what I was just talking about. Because in reality, these guys are corrupt. It's been proven over and over again. Over and over again. So since we've seen that, how about we stop trusting them? How about we don't give them any of our information? How about we stop paying our taxes to the people who literally said, I'm gonna misuse your funds to kill people, to unleash my secret army on you of masked men? Why are we paying taxes? But these folks can talk about not paying taxes and somehow still call themselves American patriots. Like, it's just upside down world. That's why you gotta stop having conversations, stop having comment section fights with people, stop having chat room fights with people. They're not speaking any kind of reality. They eventually get to the point where they just say something like, well, one day you'll believe me, or I'm just saying this because I'm a this. I don't care what you are, bro. We're dealing in like facts and reality right now because this affects people's lives. And the people's lives that they wanted to affect with this holding of all these childcare funds, as is pointed out in that USA Today article, was that it's for mostly lower income Americans. They don't like anyone else in this country except the folks in the ivory tower to take more of your money. But they're gonna keep telling you that all these dirty, filthy immigrants are coming in and taking your jobs and are raping your children and committing crimes and feeding them drugs. Why is it they keep finding people that got their kids in childcare while they're at work? Why do you keep harassing people while they're at work? How are you snatching people out of Target stores while they're at work? None of it makes any sense. So since we're dealing with people who don't care about sense and reality, just ignore them. And let's move on to the action part of removing the people whose objective here is to destroy our lives, including the people who support them.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny how these people who just got to this country are so like intelligent as far as how to game the system that they've just come to. Like it's kind of crazy, you know, instead of looking upwards at these actual business people and career politicians who would actually know how to game the system and also how to run a propaganda machine. But we're gonna move on to our next story because we're running through them in this aftermath. Trump's economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, has been absent from the news for some time, probably because he always just makes a fool of himself whenever he comes out. So fortunately for us, his hiatus has come to an end and he is now back on the news saying dumb stuff like this.
When you look at the numbers and see that they're below 100, then the below 100 thing isn't as disturbing as it might be in the past, because a lot of it is like we've reduced federal government employment by 250,000 this year, and of course we're deporting illegals. And so if you account for those things, then the expected jobs number for a strong month is a lot closer to what we're seeing.
I just think we're missing something here.
All right, well, here's a sentence you don't hear very often. Stuart Varney is exactly right. There is something missing from Hassett's accounting. So starting with the December jobs numbers, Hassett tried to make them sound better by calling them under 100,000, that is. While true, it's quite a rounding error. The new BLS figures show that employers added only 50,000 jobs last month, nearly 33% below the Dow Jones estimate of 73,000. Absent context, you may wonder if that really is that bad. But for comparison, here is Biden's last year versus Trump's first year. Trump's first this term. So BLS data shows that in the final full year of President Joe Biden's term, the economy added an average of 168,000 jobs per month. Throughout Trump's second term in 2025, the figure shrank to 49,000 jobs per month. And the Navy Federal Credit Union chief economist Heather Long told CNBC that 2025's payroll unemployment gain of 584,000 marks the worst year outside of a recession since 2003. And for the graphically inclined, here's another way to visualize how much worse Trump is doing than Biden. This chart shows non-farm payroll employment over the month change, seasonally adjusted. Oh my God, look at that. In September 2025, just complete, that's ridiculous. Like that's an insane number. And like the rest of 2025 was not much better, especially after March. This shows from December 2023 to 2025. JR, we have not had access to a lot of jobs numbers since Trump took office. He said that we're not gonna do that anymore because the numbers were so bad. I have some mixed feelings about jobs numbers as far as whether or not they're an accurate benchmark that we should be basing our economy off of, especially when you consider that we're moving into a new technological age and time, and that is going to shift some things as far as jobs. In a perfect world, right? And like, I don't know, like Andrew Yang's perfect AI driven world, right? The American people would be working less. There would be more jobs eliminated, and that would be a good thing because now we get to do all the fun stuff. But instead, we have been so ill prepared for any kind of technological advancement that would give the American people more free time, because the government also doesn't want us to have more free time. They want us to continue to do these crazy inane jobs and just keep us busy and occupied. But at the same time, they're getting rid of the jobs. And so there's no infrastructure for us to be able to live and support ourselves in this country with that our government has given us. So instead, we just get all of the bad and then none of the good of these technological advancements. And then also of people like Elon Musk going into various government departments and just shutting them completely down without having anything to replace them with.
Yeah, it's weird. I would like to hear more about your approach to these job numbers, because that's one of the things that I think other folks had been talking about, the way that they're collected, but we're at the zero collection version of that. So it's like, if you find some hiccups or whatever issues you may have with the way it works, their response, not based off of the argument that you have, but more based off of their argument, they want to hide how bad it really is. That's when they switched over to then this approach of just eliminate the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the way that they do it all together. Again, another point of normalization of a bad approach. They said they were going to temporarily do this. I mean, we're going to fire the lady because she has absolutely nothing to do with the collection of these things. So they fired the commissioner of Bureau of Labor Statistics and then went about just making up their other numbers. But every once in a while, since there's this other version of the ways that they can tally these jobs numbers, those look horrible too. And we're just living with this new reality. We're supposed to forget that during Biden's term, that there was 6 figures of jobs per month, and now we're down to 49 to 50,000 a month, and that's just our new normal. We're supposed to sit in that and just be like, oh, that's what it is now, and not be upset about it. Just that's Donald Trump. Bro, it's crazy how we keep accepting such a low level of any kind of accomplishment, such sheer incompetence from these guys, and we're just supposed to accept it. That's the basis for white supremacy here from these types of folks. That's why they push DEI so hard and look at these minorities who are destroying everything with working, because they don't accomplish anything. He's collected as many people who don't accomplish anything as possible, put them around him, and they've got just a camp of stupidity. And then we're supposed to go along with it while they take our money and we pay the price for their stupidity.
Yeah, and so many of the stories that we talk about on shows like this one are, they highlight these issues that they give you a lot of statistics and they say, oh, this many thousands of jobs or tens of thousands of jobs were eliminated over this much time every month. But when you think about it, can you or your spouse afford to lose a job? What would happen to your household if you lost a job, or your spouse or partner, whoever lost a job? It would be crazy, right? You wouldn't be able to support your family. And then also the likelihood that you would be able to quickly find another job of a comparable salary to replace the one that you just lost. The horror stories that you hear about people on the job market or in the job market now, it's untenable, right? It's unsustainable. There's no lifeboat for any of these people who have had their jobs taken from them. They have no safety net or savings, because most Americans don't, at least not the kind that they would need to sustain, sometimes a year or two of job searching. And the jobs that are out there are just not as good as the ones that people are losing. So anyway, we're gonna move on to our final story of the aftermath. Silicon Valley executives are in a panic over the proposed California wealth tax that has been proposed and looking to be added to the ballot this year. So of course, they're proving the tax supporters right by using their money to try and defeat this. And that's the reason why we don't like it. So the first 7-figure political donation that can be used to defeat the so-called billionaires tax became public on Friday. Peter Thiel, the venture capitalist and chairman of Palantir, donated $3 million to a committee opposing the proposed initiative. The contribution, made on December 29th, went to a political committee of a state business lobby, the California Business Roundtable. So some opponents of the wealth tax estimate that more than $75 million will be spent trying to defeat it. So I can tell you unequivocally, we are casting a broad net to donors all over the state. He's one of hundreds we have, and that was Rob Lapsley, the president of the lobby group of Mr. Teal. Mr. Lapsley said he had been working the phones to wage a huge effort with business leaders to defeat the billionaire's tax and a second local tax proposal. So here is also just a reminder of the scary wealth tax that they're looking to beat. The California initiative was put forward by a state healthcare union to offset federal budget cuts that threaten California's healthcare system. It calls for California residents worth more than $1 billion to be taxed the equivalent of 5% of their assets and would apply retroactively to anyone who lived in the state as of January 1st. And it needs to obtain nearly 900,000 signatures to get on the state ballot in November. Gavin Newsom is actually against it. He called it bad policy and argued that it would lead billionaires to move out of the state. And that's something that has already plagued Gavin Newsom throughout his governorship in California. And some wealthy donors have been commissioning polls to assess public opinion on the proposed ballot measure. And I'm gonna guess that it's probably super popular. I don't live in California. Jayar, you also are no longer in California, but I imagine this would be a pretty popular move for the people of that state. But if the money doesn't work, they're also going to try to confuse the voters. That's always a good route to go. So one group of donors, including the investor Ron Conway, is raising money for a committee that seeks to beat the tax proposal head on in November. Another group is rallying around a different idea commonly employed in California, sponsoring its own rival ballot initiatives, also on taxes, in an effort to confuse the voters. So this is what we're talking about, Jayar. I feel like this has come up several times on this show. People are so confused as to what is going on, and you can't blame them. I'm not mad at people for being confused and not knowing what's going on, because who can be expected to keep track of all these things? And they know that, right? They know also that people who go to polls, they aren't fully informed with everything that's gonna be on that ballot, because to do so would mean a lot of research, a lot of time, and some people simply don't have that kind of time or know how. Some people don't know how to do that kind of research into everything on the ballot. So everyone wants to tax the rich, except for the rich, and the rich are the ones who can actually have the power to prevent it from happening. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, they're using their money to force these things. It's usual. So once you have the money that you've already siphoned for whatever previous ways that you did it to make your billion, then you use it again to keep it for more folks. We were just talking before about these groups of conservatives that were talking about how they're not gonna pay their taxes anymore because they're mad about something. But you got billionaires who are refusing to pay their taxes because they're mad about nothing. They're billionaires, and we're supposed to celebrate them for some reason. But while they're billionaires, they can then claim, I'm not gonna pay my taxes. And if you try and force me to pay my taxes, I'm gonna put up tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to fight back that effort, which means they've got tens to hundreds of millions of dollars worth of money to put forward to stop something that they're willing to toss around that apparently they don't need to survive off of, just to keep from paying taxes. But if you're a regular American who makes $50,000 a year, and you're like, well, I can't afford anything. You say, I'm not gonna pay my taxes because the policies you guys keep putting in place literally make it impossible for me to literally live. Let's reread what happened. This whole thing started because of budget cuts to the healthcare system. That's literally cutting off people's lives. But we're supposed to give a damn about Peter Thiel's weird, crusty looking face. We're supposed to care about him and whether or not he can live to survive, and how he's spending hundreds of millions of dollars to keep other people dying while he hoards his money. Where does that land? Gavin Newsom's gonna come up with something better than this and just, well, the billionaires are leaving. I'm not on my show, I can't curse right now, but let them leave, bro. Let them go try and exploit somebody else. How about we stand for the people in the state? Now, I'm sure that's devastating on multiple levels, but where are they gonna then go live and go do their thing and exploit other people's money and take money from their pockets? It's a completely unsustainable system to keep catering to people whose only objective in life is to kill you while they keep all their money. And they find new ways to do it. That's all this is. Speaking with their money. And if they got more of it, they'll speak louder with more of it.
Yeah, well, the question of where are they going to go next? We know they're already here. They're in Texas, and they're coming. They're taking over the Gulf Coast, the third coast, as they call it. We love having them here. I think the last time I was on the Damage Report, it was last Thursday, and John was like, "Can you answer for your boy Elon Musk?" And I was like, "No, he's not mine. We didn't ask for him to come here. We don't want him here. I don't want him here." And
Texans will be tired of them too. Same way Californians.
Yeah, absolutely. But our governor is completely just like, everybody come, all the billionaires come, and he's willing to roll out the red carpet for them. He's taking money from our public system and giving it to various private institutions. That's a whole other story. We got to end the show. I can't just start talking about Texas right now and everything.
We got to do this again. Yes, we got to do this again. Come over and watch us. We'll do this again.
Yeah. All right. So Jayar, thank you so much for joining me. Do you want to tell the people where they know where to find you?
Every day, yeah. Right before we leave to this, that's why I was yelling when I walked in. So yeah, I do this every day at noon. The watch party, watch this. We do the live stream. The videos go up later. You guys should come hang and check it out. It's good times, even though it's depressing topics.
It's good times, but also depressing times. So on that note, we're gonna wrap this show and this aftermath. Thank you so much for joining. John should be back tomorrow, so tune in for that. See you later.